Good afternoon, Awtrey. I know I'm a few minutes late, but I've been collaborating with some of your teachers, and I have just had a fantastic time talking to eighth grade social studies and eighth grade science. So I'm so happy that they let me join in their meeting and collaborate with them a little. So my shirt for the day is probably my oldest librarian t-shirt that I've had, my oldest. So it is well worn. I'm gonna see if y'all get the gist of it. Twice as high as a butterfly in the sky. Take a look, it's in a book. The Reading Rainbow. Okay, so today my book doesn't really have to do with books or librarians or libraries, even though it is the last day of National Library Week. But a lot of times, and I saw a meme this week that said something about librarians are the evil geniuses of the school. So, yeah, I'm reading Evil Genius, the first chapter of it anyway. So I have started this book multiple times and have never yet finished it. And I think I might, pick it up and try and finish it this time. Again, it is on our Sora app. I can't remember if it is Cobb County Public Library side or Cobb County School District. But the cool thing is when you search, there's a button up there, a little checkbox that you can check that says search all my libraries. So if you're searching for a specific book title, honestly, I do it whether I'm searching for a specific title or a keyword or anything. I just keep that checked. And it always, always, always does search both my libraries. So it searches my Cobb County Awtrey Library, and it also searches the Cobb County Public Library. So I am going to read, been talking a lot in those meetings, Chapter 1 of Evil Geniuses, and this is by Catherine Jinks. I like that last name Jinks because I've seen several characters with last name Jinks, and I really like that. All right, here we go. Cadell Peejoe, I'm assuming it's pronounced Peejoe, but you know me, I don't always pronounce my words right, was just 7 years old when he first met Thaddeus Roth. Dr. Roth worked in a row house near Sydney Harbor. The house was 3 stories high, its garden shrouded by a great many damp, dark trees. There was moss growing on its sandstone window ledge. Curtains drawn across all its windows gave it a secretive air. Its front fence was made of iron with a spike on top of each post. Beside the creaking gate was a brass sign bearing Dr. Roth's name and qualifications. "That's it," said Mr. Peejoe. "Number 29. "Well, we can't stop here," her husband replied. I'm sorry, Mrs. Peejoe said that. Her husband replied, "No parking." "I told you to park back there." "It doesn't matter. We'll try down this street." "Stuart, that's a one-way street." Damn it. I knew we'd never find a space. Not around this area. "Just shut up for a minute, will you?" Mr. and Mrs. Peejoe were not Cadell's real parents. They had adopted him when he was not quite 2 years old. Mrs. Peejoe was thin and blonde. Mr. Peejoe, fat and gray. They almost never agreed about anything, but that didn't matter because they almost never met. Their busy schedules kept them away from home and one another for a good deal of the time. At the suggestion of the police, however, they had both agreed to attend this interview. "We're going to be late," Mrs. Peejoe warned her husband after they had circled the block 4 times in Mr. Peejoe's big, gleaming Mercedes-Benz. Just let us out, for goodness sake. "I'll park here." "Stuart, you'll never fit in there." "Watch me." Cadell said nothing. He sat on the back seat, dressed in his good brown cords and a lamb's wool sweater, staring out the window at Dr. Roth's house. He didn't like the look of it. He thought it had a murky, ominous appearance. I don't want to go, he said flatly when Mrs. Peejoe got out and opened the door beside him. I know, honey, but we have to. No, we don't, Cadell retorted. Yes, we do. There were no formal charges, Cadell pointed out in his high, clear voice. It was just a suggestion. That's right, said Mr. Peejoe, yanking Cadell out of the back of the car. And when the police make a suggestion, you always follow it. Rule number 1. Be careful, Stuart. You'll wreck his clothes. Cadell was so small, even for a 7-year-old, that he didn't stand a chance against Mr. Peejoe. Though he had dragged his feet and hung off his adoptive parents' hands like a sack of melons, he was forced across the street and through the front gate of number 29. The path beyond the gate was mushy with wet leaves. There was a rich smell of decay. The door knocker was a ring in the mouth of a snarling lion's head painted black like the rest of the ironwork. Cadell noted with interest the switchboard near the door. It was obviously ancient, full of porcelain fuses and dial meters. The Peejoes' own house was only 3 years old with a state-of-the-art electrical system, so Cadell was fascinated by this dusty old relic. But he was not permitted to gaze at it for long. Come on, Mr. Peejoe barked. The door's open. And he pushed against it, causing it to swing back and reveal a long, dark hallway carpeted with dingy Persian rugs. About halfway down this hallway, a staircase the color of walnut swept up to the next floor. There were several doors to the right of the front entrance, but only the closest stood ajar. Hello, Mr. Peejoe marched straight through it. He wasn't a man who normally waited for anything. We've an appointment with Dr. Roth for 10:30. Gripped firmly around his wrist, Cadell had no choice but to follow Mr. Peejoe. He found himself in a reception area, 2 rooms divided by a pair of folding mahogany doors. There were 2 marble fireplaces and 2 chandeliers. Cadell noticed cobwebs on the chandeliers. A woman sat behind an antique desk. Good morning, she said calmly. What name, please? Peejoe, Mr. Peejoe replied in a pompous tone. Stuart, Lana, and Cadell. He looked surprised when the woman rose, revealing herself to be almost as wide and as tall as he was. She had a broad, square face and small blue eyes. She was wearing a suit the color of dried blood. I'll just go and tell Dr. Roth you've arrived, she declared before lumbering out of the room. Cadell didn't watch her go. He was more interested in the computer that she'd left behind, with its alluring glow and contented hum. The screensaver was one that he'd never seen before, a pattern of falling dominoes. Don't even think about it, Stuart rasped when he realized what was attracting Cadell's attention. Sit down over there. Look, honey, there are toys for you to play with, Lana said, nudging a large basket with the toe of her expensive Italian shoes. Sulkily, Cadell eyed the basket's content, voltmeter, together with a book on flies, a plastic human skull, life-sized, a Rubik's Cube, and a Frankenstein mask. Further investigation uncovered a dead spider embedded in a resin paperweight, a shark's tooth, a galaxy warrior complete with thermopuncher torpedoes, and a very curious fragment of puzzle bearing the picture of a staring bloodshot eye over a set of claw marks. He was puzzling over the macabre image when the sound of heavy footsteps reached his ears. It seemed that Dr. Roth's receptionist was returning, clumping down the stairs like someone wearing ski boots. Lana, who had flung herself onto an armchair, immediately jumped to her feet. Stuart glared at the door. Dr. Roth will see you now, the receptionist announced when she finally appeared. You can go straight up. Stuart and Lana exchanged glances. Are you sure? Lana objected. I mean, does he want to discuss things in front of Cadell? Oh, yes, the receptionist declared firmly. Something about her voice made Cadell look up. He studied her with care, from the top of her permed head to the soles of her brown shoes. She smiled in response, and the Peejoes all recoiled. Her mouth looked as if it belonged to an older, harsher century. Why are your teeth black? Cadell wanted to know. Why are your teeth white? The receptionist responded, winding her way back to her desk. Lana snatched at Cadell's hand and hustled him out of the room. She and her husband whispered together as they climbed the stairs, which creaked and groaned beneath them. Stuart, what was the matter with... I don't know. Do you think this is a good idea? Of course it is. But what about that woman? Her teeth. Stuart shrugged. They had reached a landing, but it wasn't the right one. From above their heads, a voice said, "Up here!" A man was draped over the second-floor banister. He was tall and thin and wore a tweed jacket. His thick, dark hair was going gray. "That's the bathroom," he remarked at the soothing voice with a cultured English accent. "I'm afraid my office is at the top here." "Dr. Roth?" said Stuart. "Yes, indeed." "We're a bit late," Lana offered a trifle breathlessly. "No parking." "You should turn that front yard of yours into a parking lot," Stuart added, climbing the last flight of stairs. Gracefully, Dr. Roth moved to push open the door of his office. "I would," he said, "if the local council would let me. Heritage listing, I'm afraid." Stuart grunted. Lana smiled, a meaningless social smile. They both passed into Dr. Roth's office ahead of Cadell, who stopped on the threshold. He gazed up at Thaddeus. "Why does she have black teeth?" Cadell inquired. "Wilfreda? I'm not sure," Thaddeus replied. "Poor dental hygiene, I should think. Her parents had very strange ideas about diet and doctors. Maybe they didn't believe in toothbrushes either." He cocked his head. "So you're Cadell?" "Yes." "Come in, Cadell." Dr. Roth's office surprised Cadell because it was full of modern furniture and computer equipment. There were a number of glossy cabinets, some full of filing drawers, some with cables running out of them. Cadell's eyes gleamed when he spotted those cables. "Sit down, please." Dr. Roth gestured at a cluster of couches placed between his desk and a pair of French doors. Lana chose the crimson couch, settling down onto it very carefully, her bare knees drawn together. Stuart dropped into his seat like a stone. "We brought this referral," said his wife, passing an envelope to Dr. Roth. Thaddeus opened it, removed a folded sheet of paper, and sewed the paper flat without taking his eyes off Cadell, whose attention was fixed on a modem attached to an inline filter. "The police suggest we arrange some counseling for Cadell," Stuart explained. "They also suggested that he shouldn't be allowed to use a computer except under supervision, responsible supervision." "He's far too young to understand," added Lana, smoothing down her short skirt. "His emotional maturity hasn't caught up with his intellect." "He has a genius IQ," said her husband gruffly. "We had him tested." "It's not his fault. We would have said something if we'd known what he was up to." "He's not a bad kid." Thaddeus raised an eyebrow. By this time, he was glancing through the referral, nodding to himself. When he had finished, he refolded the paper and tucked it into his jacket pocket. "Right," he said, then cleared his throat. "Cadell, would you like to use my computer?" Cadell whirled around. Stuart and Lana both gasped. "But he can't," Stuart sputtered. "He's not allowed," Lana cried. "Oh, I think he'll be all right," said Dr. Roth. "I'll be interested to see if he does make a nuisance of himself. There's some very tough security software installed on that computer." He smiled indulgently at Cadell. "Knock yourself out, kid." While Cadell scuttled over to the desk, his adopted parents looked at each other in dismay. Dr. Roth sank into the couch opposite them, his long, bony hands pressed together under his beaky nose. "So," he began, "Cadell has been hacking into high-security computer networks. Is that it?" "The power grid," Stuart interrupted, "and a bill-paying service." "He likes the challenge," says Lana, sounding worried. "I'm sure that's it. He's bored at school." "He knows he shouldn't have," Stuart growled, "but I don't think he's aware." "That isn't against the law," his wife interjected. at which point Stuart turned on her. I was going to say that he's probably not aware of the full implications if you'd let me get a word in edgewise, he snapped. It's not against the law, not when you're 7 years old. That's the whole point. You can't charge a kid of his age. But the police thought that the measures ought to be taken in any case, Dr. Roth remarked smoothly. I understand. And may I ask whether you've discussed these matters with the school he attends? What's it called? Elfington Grammar, Lena supplied. We live on the North Shore, you see. They've expelled him, Stuart said flatly. Don't want him there. Too much like hard work designing special programs for a genius. So we've enrolled him in Jamboree Gardens. They believe in small classes and they nurture potential on an individual basis. It's one of those tree hugger schools, Stuart concluded, without much enthusiasm. Again, Thaddeus nodded. In the brief silence that followed, the click-clack of a hard-working computer keyboard filled the room. Cadell sat perched on Dr. Roth's chair, his small feet dangling, his gaze fixed. Can you tell me anything else about your son that might be useful? Thaddeus said at last, and Lana leaned forward. We're not his birth parents, she revealed in a low voice. If that matters. He knows, of course. This wouldn't have happened if his nanny hadn't left, Stuart sighed. No supervision. Why did his nanny leave? Dr. Roth queried upon Stuart rubbed the back of his neck in obvious discomfort. This time, Lana's voice was so low that it was barely a whisper. He used to charge things to her credit card. She used it so much that, of course, he picked up on it. He's a funny kid, Stuart admitted. He's not normal. Stuart. Well, he's not. You can't pretend he is. Shh. But Cadell didn't seem to be listening. He was peering at the computer screen, his lips pursed, his brow furrowed. You know what he said to me the other day? Stuart continued. Lana and I had been arguing. We don't often argue, his wife broke in, smiling nervously at Thaddeus. You're giving Dr. Roth the wrong idea, honey. Stuart snorted. Yeah, well, whatever you say. Anyhow, he looked me straight in the eye and he said, you're like a malfunctioning modem with her. You need to locate the right initialization string. Stuart blinked. Can you believe that? His wife tittered. Oh, dear, she said. That is so Cadell. He carries the strangest things around with him. Stuart went on. Not yo-yos or rubber frogs or stuff like that. He carries circuit boards and thermostats and ignition coils. Lord only knows where he gets them. Out of my computer, Lana grimaced, her face falling suddenly. That's where he gets them. Or he dismantles the security system. We have a circuitry room, Stuart confessed. It controls the security system and the phone system and the air conditioning. We can never get him out of there. Half the time when you turn on the television, the garage door opens. Whatever kind of lock on that circuitry room, he's always cracking it sooner or later. Like you said, Lana, he can't resist a challenge. All three adults turned their heads to study Cadell, who ignored them. He looked just like a little angel with his huge blue eyes, chestnut curls, and heart-shaped face. We were wondering if he was a bit autistic, Lana sighed, but he's not. We checked it out. He's just not very interested in people, especially other kids, said Stuart. Well, what other kids anywhere near his age are going to be interested in information protocol settings? Quite, said Thaddeus. And what do you hope to gain from having Cadell visit me here, Mr. and Mrs. Peejoe? Well, said Lana, casting a hopeful glance at her husband, who shrugged. We're just doing what we're told, he mumbled. So this whole business won't happen again. Perhaps you can teach Cadell some social skills, Lana proposed brightly. Help him to understand that he can't do whatever he wants just because he's smarter than everyone else. Sorry, I got to take a sip. because he thinks he's smarter than anyone else, Stewart admitted, and his eyes narrowed his eyes, his jaw muscles working. Thaddeus surveyed him thoughtfully. Yes, said Thaddeus, I see. All at once, he surged to his feet, taking Mr. and Mrs. Peejoe by surprise. Well, thank you very much for your input, he remarked pleasantly. You've been most helpful. I'll keep in mind when I talk to your son. It might be interesting to have some more tests done, but I'll discuss that with you later. Could you give me, say, 20 minutes alone with Cadell? It should be enough for today. You mean now, said Stewart. If that's all right with you, well, I guess so. If it's all right with Cadell, said Lana. Cadell, honey, do you mind if we step outside for a few minutes? Dr. Roth wants to talk to you. There was no reply. Cadell didn't appear to have registered the fact that Lana was addressing him. He won't even notice we're gone, her husband muttered. You watch. We'll be right downstairs, honey. We won't be far. You'd think he was deaf, Stewart complained. As he nudged his wife from the room, she threw Dr. Roth a toothy smile. He's not deaf, actually, she assured the psychologist. We've had tests done. Bang! The door slammed shut. Thaddeus waited until he could no longer hear the tramp of feet on the stairs before strolling over to where Cadell sat in the typist's chair. Cadell ignored him. Suddenly, Thaddeus yanked at the chair, making it spin around until it was pointing towards him. Then he grabbed each armrest and leaned into Cadell's face. Cadell's hands jumped up in a startled reflex. I'll make a deal with you, Cadell, said Thaddeus. Can you keep a secret? Solemnly, Cadell nodded. Good. Then this is what we'll do. If you don't tell your parents about it, I'll let you use my computer whenever you come here. Does that sound good? Again, Cadell nodded. And all I ask in return is this. The corner of Thaddeus's mouth rose, revealing one yellowish, pointed canine tooth. Through the lenses of his spectacles, his eyes were black as a snake's. His voice dropped to a throaty whisper. Next time, he muttered, whatever you do, don't get caught. So that is chapter 1 of Evil Geniuses. So, our Evil Genius. And again, it is by Catherine Jinks. So I would love to hear what you're reading. I think I'm going to do a group next week. I'm going to put the link on the Facebook post, and I might have Mr. Crawford email it out to parents that if you want to log into a Zoom to talk books and talk about what you're reading and stuff like that, that we will set that up for one day next week. And I look forward to talking to y'all again about books. I had one conversation yesterday with a student about books, and it lasted about 45 minutes, and it's wonderful. Best part of my day so far. So I hope you guys have a great, safe weekend. I know the state of Georgia is opening back up, but please remember to social distance and to keep yourself safe. And it doesn't mean that you have to go do what they're telling you you can do, but more things are opening. But I just want you guys to stay safe and keep those around you as safe as possible. So keep your grandparents and your parents and your siblings all safe by social distancing when you are out and about. Have a great day, Awtrey. And remember, this is the last day this week of National Library Week, but the whole month of April is National Library Month. So have a great day.